Ever feel like your anxieties are lined up like samurai, ready to strike? If so, meet your secret ally, Miyamoto Musashi. This legendary swordsman overcame intense personal battles that extended far beyond the battlefield. Today, we'll dive into how he mastered his emotions, specifically tackling anxiety. Sound surprising? That's exactly why you should stick around. Ready to discover Musashi's hidden secrets? Let's jump right in. I'll share his timeless wisdom for beating worries and anxieties. Miyamoto Musashi, born in the late 1500s, is widely revered as one of Japan's greatest swordsmen. He was known for his near-mythical skill in single combat, having reportedly never lost a duel in over 60 contests. While these battles shaped his legendary status, what many people don't realize is that Musashi also waged an internal war against fear and doubt. Anxiety may not have been labeled as such in feudal Japan, but rest assured, human nature has always wrestled with worry. Musashi experienced the same restless mind that keeps many of us awake at night. Only his version of stage fright often involved a very real threat of being skewered by a sword. What sets him apart is how he conceptualized these anxieties as an opponent. He believed that if you name your fear, you can figure out its strengths and weaknesses. Just as you might study a rival samurai before a duel, this mindset was bold and practical. Rather than treating stress as some formless monster under the bed, Musashi turned it into a challenge he could examine and strategize against. Today, that same approach can help us see our worries less like an all-consuming void and more like an issue with boundaries we can navigate. His uncanny ability to remain calm under sword-swinging pressure gave him a unique perspective that resonates in modern psychology. Again, for him, this was a puzzle to solve, rather than a dragon to run away from. And he did all of this without the internet, motivational podcasts, or self-help books. And you have to admit, that's pretty impressive for a guy who lived centuries ago. The notion of facing fear head-on might sound scary. Let's be honest, nobody really enjoys going toe-to-toe with their worst nightmares. Yet Musashi's life offers a blueprint for doing exactly that. He approached fear much like a samurai duel. First, you gather information on your adversary. Then you map out a plan of attack. And finally, you execute it with unwavering focus. His early life was filled with turmoil. He's said to have fought in the Sekigahara War around 1600, which was like being thrown into a real-life Game of Thrones scenario. Imagine the anxiety of walking onto a battlefield where everyone is armed to the teeth. Alliances shift daily, and the slightest mistake could mean your end. Musashi survived, and not just by luck. He disciplined his mind to remain present. Instead of letting hypothetical what-ifs spiral out of control, he zeroed in on the immediate threat and found ways to neutralize it. For many of us, anxiety thrives on what might happen tomorrow or what went wrong yesterday. Musashi's method was to bring his full attention to the moment, cutting through mental noise like a sharp katana through bamboo. He didn't do this casually, though. It was a deliberate exercise in mindfulness centuries before the word became a Western buzzword. There's something both comforting and strangely funny about the fact that a 17th century samurai had a better grip on anxiety than most of us do with all our modern resources. But maybe that's why his teachings still matter. They remind us that humans, with all our achievements, remain vulnerable to the same fears. What Musashi realized is that when you stand your ground and confront fear, it begins to lose its supernatural hold on you. It transforms from an overwhelming presence into a challenge that, while still serious, can be tackled. In his day, that might have meant a carefully timed sword strike. In ours, it could be having that difficult conversation, making a lifestyle change, or seeking professional support. Musashi didn't wake up every morning thinking, "Let's wing it." He was a strategist. One of his lesser-known teachings is the emphasis he placed on careful preparation. He wrote extensively about the idea of employing the correct stance, not just physically but mentally. Today, some might call it setting yourself up for success, but Musashi viewed it as creating an advantage before you even drew your sword. Now, applying that to anxiety, think of it as preparing for a big presentation at work or a crucial job interview. Instead of letting your nerves run wild, you identify what triggers your anxiety and rehearse your responses. Musashi would have practiced his footwork, studied the terrain, and anticipated his opponent's moves. In our modern context, maybe that translates to practicing your pitch until it feels second nature, reviewing your notes thoroughly, or even doing a test run with a friend. There's a slightly controversial aspect to Musashi's strategic approach, though. Some accounts suggest he occasionally resorted to tactics considered less than honorable by his opponents, arriving late to duels, using unconventional weapons like a wooden oar, and capitalizing on the frustration he caused. Some historians argue that he was simply cunning, while others debate if he was borderline dishonorable. This moral gray area sparks conversation, even among modern scholars. Was he a tactical genius or just a trickster? Regardless, it underscores his unwavering commitment to winning both physically and mentally. He refused to let anxiety or social expectations dictate his methods. The lesson here is that life doesn't always adhere to a strict moral code that punishes or rewards us in predictable ways. Sometimes you have to bend a few unwritten rules to protect your peace of mind. Of course, that doesn't mean you should lie or cheat, but it does mean you can be creative and resourceful in your battle against anxiety. If Musashi could show up to a sword fight with a boat oar because he saw it as advantageous, you can certainly schedule your toughest tasks for the time of day when you're at your mental peak. When people hear the word solitude, they often associate it with loneliness or avoidance. Musashi, however, considered solitude a tool for reflection and refinement. He frequently retreated from bustling society to practice his swordplay and contemplate his life's direction. Some people find it controversial that he was so reclusive. They imagine a brooding warrior skulking in a cave. Yet Musashi's solitude was not a social withdrawal born from fear, it was a strategic retreat for self-improvement. In a world so noisy and connected, where your smartphone pings every 5 seconds, voluntary solitude might sound impossible or even suspicious. Still, Musashi's life shows us that deliberately carving out time to be alone can help us dissect our anxieties in a calm, controlled environment. If your stress levels skyrocket every time an email notification pops up, consider that you don't have to check your inbox every minute. A brief, scheduled escape can do wonders for your mental clarity. In modern terms, maybe you take 15 minutes each morning to sip coffee in silence before your kids wake up. Or you could spend your lunch break walking around the block without your phone in hand. Musashi would likely applaud these small acts of solitude. He viewed these moments as opportunities to sharpen not just your sword but also your awareness. By regularly stepping away from the chaos of everyday life, you give your mind a chance to reset. And when you return to the fray, you're better equipped to face challenges head-on. Of course, some folks might argue that stepping away is irresponsible. Shouldn't you be always on, always responsive? But Musashi's life reminds us that constant engagement can be exhausting and counterproductive. If a legendary samurai found it helpful to vanish for a while, perhaps we too can benefit from going offline, if only for a bit. One of Musashi's core philosophies was the relentless pursuit of self-improvement. He believed you should never remain static, especially if you aspire to outmatch your past self. A single skill or achievement, no matter how impressive, wasn't enough. For Musashi, the journey was continuous. He famously developed the two-sword fighting style known as Nitenichi Ryu, refusing to limit himself to the conventional single-sword approach. Why settle for one when you can master two? When it comes to anxiety, many of us get stuck in a loop of worry that we aren't improving fast enough, or at all. Musashi's approach offers a refreshing take. Focus on small, tangible wins. Did you manage to calm yourself faster than last time? Great. Did you push through a difficult conversation without panicking? There's another victory. Musashi's life shows that grand battles are won through accumulating small successes, each building confidence and honing skill. Here's a detail that often gets overlooked. Musashi was also a painter, calligrapher, and sculptor. In his later years, he didn't confine himself to swordsmanship but explored different arts. Some of these art pieces still exist, reflecting his pursuit of perfection in multiple fields. This diversity suggests he understood something crucial. Broadening your horizons can alleviate stress by giving your mind different ways to channel energy. Instead of obsessing over one skill or problem, you balance your mental portfolio. People sometimes claim it's unrealistic to keep learning new hobbies or refining skills, especially when life is busy. Musashi would likely disagree. He'd argue that those small steps you take in learning or creating can ward off feelings of stagnation that often feed anxiety. He'd encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, mess up a few times, and laugh about it. After all, even the greatest samurai had to start somewhere, probably fumbling with a wooden sword as a child. A central tenet of Musashi's philosophy was accepting that nothing lasts forever. This concept might sound grim, but for him it was liberating. When you understand that every duel, every relationship, and every fear is fleeting, it becomes easier to let go of undue worry. Think about how much of our anxiety stems from clinging to the past or obsessing over the future. Musashi's worldview taught him to stay grounded in the moment because tomorrow's outcome couldn't be guaranteed. For middle-aged Americans who might be juggling family, career, and personal health issues, the notion of impermanence can be both scary and strangely comforting. Yes, your kids will grow up. Yes, your job situation may change. Yes, your body may not always cooperate. But if you stop and appreciate that these changes are natural, they lose some of their power to terrify you. Instead, they become part of a bigger narrative, one you can influence through mindful action rather than anxious dread. In his final years, Musashi reportedly wrote the Book of Five Rings in a cave, acknowledging that his life too would end, yet he seemed at peace with it. This acceptance didn't mean giving up, rather it signaled a readiness to face the inevitable with courage and calm. We may not be scribbling down wisdom in a cave, but we can adopt his perspective. Recognizing that everything is transient can help us savor good moments and endure bad ones with composure. Some critics argue that focusing on impermanence can breed nihilism. Musashi's life defies that stance. He didn't mope around proclaiming nothing matters. He fought, created art, taught students, and improved himself endlessly. Accepting impermanence fueled his drive to make each moment count. That's a mentality that can help anyone wrestle anxiety into a more manageable form. When I started this YouTube channel, I found myself overwhelmed by numbers. Subscriber counts, view totals, and video rankings became my obsession. Anxiety crept in. I'd wake up in the middle of the night refreshing stats on my phone. Then I stumbled on Musashi's philosophy, particularly his idea of focusing on perfecting your craft rather than obsessing over the outcome. It hit me like a revelation. I realized I was letting external metrics dictate my emotional well-being. Much like a samurai who fights only for glory but ignores the essence of skill and discipline. So I changed my strategy. I spent more time planning my content, improving my editing skills, and making sure each video was something I genuinely enjoyed creating. Slowly, the anxiety ebbed. My channel began to grow in a healthier way, grounded in passion rather than panic. Musashi's teachings nudged me to shift my lens from "will I succeed" to "how can I do this better?" That mental reframe reduced the pressure to chase instant success. If the numbers dipped, I didn't see it as a personal failure, but rather as a signal to refine my process. In time, I learned to find joy in the act of creation itself, much like Musashi found in mastering the sword. As the channel grew, I still faced new pressures, but I knew better how to approach them. It was like receiving a pep talk from history's coolest samurai. Commit to the work, refine your technique, and trust that results will follow. Jokes aside, it's amazing how a centuries-old strategy can profoundly shape a modern digital endeavor. In a fast-paced society where stress is almost an expectation, Musashi's philosophy offers a calm counterbalance. He tackled anxiety by treating it as an opponent, respecting its power but never granting it total control. He planned his duels, both real and metaphorical, with meticulous care, while also leaving room to adapt on the fly. He embraced solitude when necessary, chased continual self-improvement, and acknowledged that life is temporary. For anyone dealing with the constant ping of notifications, office politics, or the terrifying world of health insurance premiums, these lessons are surprisingly relevant. You can't predict everything that'll happen in your life, but you can prepare your mind. You can't eradicate fear entirely, but you can face it head-on. You can't stop time, but you can make the most of each moment. Musashi's story isn't just an archaic samurai tale. It's a guide to modern mental fortitude. Sure, we may not be parrying swords on a battlefield, but we often feel like we're caught in 1,000 tiny wars, negotiating deadlines, family commitments, or even who takes out the trash. Musashi's approach encourages you to see each challenge as an opportunity for growth. It's about reframing your internal narrative from "I'm drowning in problems" to "I'm collecting insights, one duel at a time." Jokes aside, there's a reason why Miyamoto Musashi remains legendary. He faced his fears with strategy, determination, and a dash of audacity. If you're feeling anxious, remember that it can be conquered when treated like a worthy rival rather than an unstoppable force. Hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, subscribing to the channel will help you stay on this journey of growth and discovery. Thanks for watching, and may Musashi's spirit guide you to a more peaceful, purposeful life.